Just looking at video of Santorini, I think of what I read somebody say that it was almost like Disneyland. It's like not real. This place is real.
Not knowing what to expect, it certainly wasn't disappointing. I was amazed to see all the churches, all of the little memorials. It was fascinating.
Have you ever had a feeling that you know something that no one else is aware of? That's how I feel about this place. It's the Greek island of Ayia, just a short distance off the mainland in the Aegean Sea. In fact, lots of people know about this place, maybe 5 million residents of Athens, as this is said to be their secret island getaway. I'm spending a couple of days here with my brother and sister-in-law who are visiting from the States. It's time to explore this beautiful place. It is extremely rare that one of the first things that I talk about in the video is one of the first things that I see in a location. That is the case this time, however, as this was our first stop at an attraction on the island. It is the Monastery of Panagia Kastani. This is one of the most sacred sites on the island and absolutely one of the most beautiful locations. Part of the name, Panagia, refers to the Virgin Mary, and that is part of the legend of this place. It's said that in 1700, some shepherds found an icon of the Virgin Mary buried in the ground. Locals took that as a sign that this is where a church should be established, so they built here. That was despite this being a location that was not as easily accessible as many others. A small church was established here in 1708, but this much larger monastery was created in 1910. That was to accommodate crowds that descended upon the sacred site. When I visited, the main buildings were open and no restrictions were posted about capturing some video. The imagery that I found inside the main church and also inside of a smaller structure were magnificent. What an astonishing find. The look of this place, the setting, everything is almost perfect. The most remarkable part of it is that we were the only people here during the entire time we were at the site. We spent at least a half hour exploring this place. Eventually, a man in religious dress did walk through, but there was no one else. I did read in one place that it is possible for visitors to stay in the guest houses of the monastery. That could be magical. Almost as fantastic as the sight of Panagia Kastani was the drive to and from. We gained and lost elevation quickly, and the roads included many hairpin turns. The views were remarkable. At times, the Aegean Sea shone a brilliant blue far below. At others, the magnificent folds of the interior of the island were displayed before us.
I found it remarkably beautiful. I was quite surprised at the topography. There's nothing flat except the water.
These scenes were indicative of all of those we saw during our time on Ayia. Most places I go, I rely on public transportation or walking to get around. In this instance, we opted for a rental car. The buses might only run in season, as I never saw a single one on the road over the course of our visit. Most people's first impression of Ayia will be the port city of Korissia. Its buildings flow up and away from the waters of Agios Nicholas Bay, which is a large and safe natural harbor on the northwestern coast of the island. This is one of the most active environments on Ayia. There are shops, restaurants, cafes, and more to cater to visitors and to the roughly 2,500 people who call the island home. There are whitewashed buildings here with colorful tile roofs. They have a mixture of commercial and residential uses. Climbing up from the bottom level provides the experience of winding through pathways amongst the structures. That is always so appealing. The capital city of Ioulida lies inland about 5 kilometers from Korissia. It is up in the hills, significantly higher than the areas along the coast. The businesses and houses of the town are spread over the tops of 3 hills. As advertised, the entire town is a pedestrian zone, as vehicles are parked on the outskirts. In some instances, I saw donkeys being used to haul supplies to the interior of the city. There were times, though, that cars, motorcycles, and even vans squeezed through the narrow streets. There are many levels to this town, and it is truly special just walking the streets and stairways to get from place to place. The only time that it is not so enjoyable is when you are trying to reach a specific location. Then it is a bit more challenging. It is time to learn from my mistakes. When I first got to the town, I wanted to use Google Maps to find my way around. It took me through these narrow streets, up and down steps. It wasn't efficient at all. Then I found some arrows on the streets. I followed those, much more effective way of getting around. The place that I was attempting to reach was the Lion of Kia. Once I navigated through the city streets, it was pretty simple to get there over a path that extended for a kilometer or two. We are told that this figure of a lion was carved from a solid piece of rock in about the 6th or 7th century BC. It is a sizable sculpture, with information that I found saying that it is around 8 to 9 meters long. It didn't seem quite that big to me. One legend says that nymphs, which were some of the original inhabitants, were chased away by a lion. This angered the gods, and they caused the island to shift from a wet environment with lush vegetation to a more arid climate. There are other archaeological sites on this island in addition to the lion. We might get to some of those, we might not. It depends on time and the difficulty in reaching those places. Even if it is not possible to go to the other sites, the Archaeological Museum in Ioulida provides a good overview of the history of Kia. It is located on the lower slopes of the town, so very little climbing is needed to reach it. There are a few items on the exterior, but it's what is inside that fully shows the relics of the past. No video was allowed inside, but images could be captured. Off-season pricing meant that entry was gained for €2. Kia is known for its hiking trails. The island is roughly 12 miles long and 6 miles wide. Those trails crisscross the island, over the hills, through rugged terrain, all the way down to the sea. This truly is a hiker's paradise. There are 12 main hiking routes, covering a total distance of 81 kilometers, or just short of 50 miles. The pathways date to the 6th and 7th centuries BC, when some were used as the ways to travel between the city-states that existed here. Ancient stones put down long ago to make moving about more manageable still cover the surface of some of those trails. We walked on several of the trails as we moved about the island. One of the places we traveled by foot was on the eastern side of Kia. From the highlands, this roadbed steadily descended towards the most significant archaeological site on the island, the ruins of Carthea, which lie by the sea. The route was stunning, with views of the sun shining off of the Aegean and the sharp contours of the land. The hills are contoured in many spots to hold on to the precious soil. We did not make it all the way to the ruins, but this was still a fantastic way to spend the morning. Late in our stay, we heard about a number of watermills that were once used for grinding grain. There are 11 of them, mostly abandoned, but some now used for other purposes. We set off on the trail for Mykonos just before dusk. The trail was really special, a path through grass and stones on the side of the hill heading ever higher. I came to some abandoned and crumbling rock structures that were right on the trail. They were quite interesting, but did not look like watermills, so I continued on. Ultimately though, my progress was halted by a jumble of trees blocking the path. I could go no farther. There apparently had been a windstorm on the island several weeks before. We didn't attain our ultimate goal, but discovered a gorgeous portion of the island environment. It was steps away from where we were staying that we finally got to see more archaeologically significant ruins. These are the ruins of the prehistoric settlement of Ayia, Irini. Experts claim that what you see here dates to 3300 BC. Apparently, this was one of the most important settlements in the Aegean Sea. The site is closed except for weekends during the summer, but it is possible to see through and over the security fence. We're told that in addition to having inhabitants at this site over 5,000 years ago, there were also people living here in the 2nd and 3rd centuries BC. A temple, remnants of fortification walls, a complex of towers, and evidence of a water and drainage system have all been found here. You must return to the Archaeological Museum in Ioulida, however, to see the most impressive finds. These are some of about 50 female figures that were uncovered at Ayia, Irini. They are made of clay and were from the late Copper Age, or about 1500 BC. The statuettes, which were mostly in pieces when discovered in the 60s and 70s, are generally 1/2 to 3/4 life size. Some say that these figures are globally unique. Many other relics that were found at the Irini site are on display at the Archaeological Museum. This is a boundlessly interesting site when combining what you see and what was found here. There is also a small church that has been constructed adjacent to the ruins. We had no idea when we first arrived of the historical treasure that was steps away from where we stayed.
Get up in the morning and there's this bright sun illuminating the whole harbor, lighthouse across the way, and just right across the little cove was one of the major archaeological sites on the whole island. You're looking at it right out of the front door of your apartment.
Our space on Kea was fantastic. We stayed at the Vourkari Bay House. The interior was spacious and very well decorated. We had 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a fully equipped kitchen. The terrace and the view over the bay was exceptional. We enjoyed our time here immensely. It was only a short walk to the town of Vourkari. This is a fishing village, situated right on the water. Many boats were docked just below the town. Some were obviously used for fishing, while others were pleasure craft. The town was similar to many others that I have seen. Much of the retail was on the lower level, and the farther up I went, the more the buildings were residential. This place was incredibly charming. Whitewashed homes, tile roofs, basically everything you want in a small Greek island village. By appearances, it looks like this place is almost abandoned right now. But looking at the shops and the restaurants and the bars, I bet in season, this is a really fun place to be. The small peninsula on the other side of where we stayed was packed with wonders. Traveling out to the point, it was a journey up and down little hills. It's at the lowest point that a truly phenomenal event took place. This is where the crossing of Lampros Katsonis took place in 1790. A stone marker recognizes the event. A Greek captain fighting for the Russians against the Turks, the flagship of Katsonis, was trapped in the bay by several enemy ships. In the night, he managed to portage this narrow strip of land by rolling his ship over logs greased with pig fat. He escaped to the open sea. That's the stuff of movies. 100 or 200 meters away is a site identified by a sign as Koka. There are numerous stone structures that are in the process of a slow, steady collapse. These were mainly the houses of workers built in the 19th century. At one point, this area held great economic importance for the island. It was a major port for steamships carrying coal to locations around Greece. That period of significance lasted from the late 1800s to the mid-1940s. Since then, the dock and homes have been deserted. As you travel the island, there are 2 items you will see everywhere. There are 130 churches across Kea of different shapes and different sizes. While there are exceptions, most of them are whitewashed with the familiar blue accents. Many are exceptionally attractive. A lot of the churches, too, are situated in stunningly beautiful locations. One of the first you see when arriving in Korissia is Ayia Trias. It sits on a hill overlooking the harbor. Quite impressive. The other ubiquitous feature on the landscape are tiny religious shrines that are scattered about. Especially in the more rural areas of the island, it is rare to travel more than several hundred meters without coming across another. I was told that they are tributes to those who have died, and each shrine is also dedicated to a saint. Some are intricate and some are simple, but all are very touching. There are numerous beaches on Kea. Most are small, but the one at Otsias wraps around a small cove for about 700 meters. At various places, the surface of the beach is sandy, and in other spots, there are pebbles. I can imagine that during the hot summer, this is a spectacular setting for a refreshing dip in the water. When we visited during the off-season, it provided a great location for a walk along the sea. I just couldn't resist. I saw the Aegean Sea here, the little bay, it looked so inviting. I know it's December, but let's give this a shot. I entered the water late in the afternoon as the warmth of the day was beginning to fade. This is the beach that sits right on the port at Korissia. Despite its location, The water remains remarkably clear. After a moment to get used to the water, I swam and played for about 5 minutes. No one else joined me. That is an experience now, swimming in the Aegean Sea in December. You know, it really wasn't that cold. Actually, the water temperature is warmer than the air temperature, so it's more comfortable in the water than it is right now. That was great. I loved that. There were numerous places to eat on the island, although not all of them were open during the time of the year we visited. It did appear that the majority of cafes, restaurants, and bakeries within the port of Korissia were serving customers. To check out some of what was being offered, I grabbed a treat from one of the bakeries. So this is one of the things I've heard about here in Greece. It's a cheese pie. I haven't tried one yet, so I took the opportunity. Not a bad view as I tucked into my first ever cheese pie. I would say a little dry, maybe not quite as flavorful as I'd hoped, but the crust is really flaky, the phyllo, I guess. It's not bad. Maybe with something to drink. There were other food encounters. My brother and sister-in-law enjoyed a pizza from a spot right at the port.
Yummy.
While I was in Ioulida, I dropped into a coffee shop. They whipped up a cappuccino and served it to me on an enclosed outer deck. As usual, I was happy. We ate one night in Korissia at a restaurant called Rolando's. They allowed me access to the kitchen so I could check out the back end of the operation. I ordered a starter and an entree. So it's cheese with local spices. Let's see what it's like. Oh wow. It's got a really strong blue cheese type flavor. Oh my goodness, this is excellent. My brother had fried squid and my sister-in-law ate pasta bolognese. They had mixed reactions to the food. My entree was meatballs and tomato sauce. Let's try it. Meatball is so tender. That sauce is really good. It's not overwhelming. It's light. It's not too heavy. You're going away now, and I am going to finish this. Overall, I thought Rolando's was a solid choice for dinner. It is quite easy to get to Kiev from Athens, probably a huge factor in it being so popular with residents of the city. Out of the mainland port of Lavrio, we took the Ioulida, a ship operated by Triton Ferries. It is only about 12 miles from Lavrio to Kiev, and the crossing, which included going around an uninhabited island, only took about an hour. I find that starting a getaway with the trip on a ferry is the most enjoyable way to begin. Triton Ferries operates year-round to Kiev, and there are typically multiple trips each day, weather permitting. I'll end with another standout feature of the island. This is the lighthouse of Agios Nicholas. It is spectacularly positioned at the mouth of the bay, so it's one of the first things you see when arriving and one lasting impression as you leave. It was the first lighthouse in the Cyclades and the second in modern Greece. It rises 8 meters from an already elevated position. The light enhances the picturesque nature of this side of the island at dusk and on into the evening. We packed a lot into a short period of time here on Kiev. There were a couple of sites that I wanted to visit, but things just didn't work out the way I'd planned. It's okay, it happens. My hope is that I never let missed opportunities negatively impact the experiences that I do have. This was my first time on a Greek island, but I'm guessing that it won't be my last. I won't make it back to the islands during this trip, but I'm certain that I will return at some point in the future. This has just been too good. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Old, Alone, and Far From Home.